Hello and welcome to Apostolic Children's Ministry Podcast.
Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the Apostolic Children's Ministry Podcast. This is episode 105, and we're just going to call it Fishin, Fumbles, and the First Miracle. And we're glad you're here. We are running a little bit behind this week. We tried to release it on Wednesday-ish, sometimes Thursday, but here we are Saturday, and it's just now coming out, so we apologize for that. But the first couple days of this week were pretty packed. We're with our curriculum writing team down in Dallas. We got together to plan out the next couple of years, and we are super excited about some of the things we came up with and about some of the plans and the themes that we're going to be doing. So that's awesome. But when we got back, there was a mad dash to try to catch up on everything. So I'm just now getting this episode out before the week wraps up, before Sunday gets here. So thank you for your patience. But before we dive in, I do want to highlight another podcast. As you know, we're part of the Apostolic Podcast Network, and each week I try to highlight another podcast. And last week I dropped the ball. I just messed up. I forgot, and that's on me. So this week I'm pointing you at the Apostolic Children's Network podcast, hosted by none other than brother and sister Chris and Sam Bradshaw from Union City, Tennessee. And these are the real deal. They're incredible soul winners. They're involved in children's ministry forever, and they're just around all great people. I've had the chance to work alongside them for many years now, in a variety of different settings, from Summit to our children's ministry conference and other things as well. And they're just incredible, solid people. We just love them. But their podcast is awesome. It's pretty new, but it's already full of incredible content. And Brother Chris's work, it does play into when that schedule can release. But hey, that is no shade coming from me, because I am the worst. But go check them out. And without any further delay, let's get on with the episode.
Well, boy, I think it's time for a dad joke.
So a man sees a house, and in front of the house there's a sign that says "Talking Dog for Sale." Well, this caught his attention, so he knocks on the front door, and the owner just points at the backyard, and out in the backyard there is a Labrador Retriever. The man sees the dog and says, "Do you talk?" The dog says, "Yep." He said, "Okay, wow, what's the story?" Well, the dog said, "I discovered my ability to talk when I was young. I wanted to help the government, so I told the CIA, and they had me traveling around the world, eavesdropping on conversations, and I was one of the most valuable spies the United States has. But all that jet setting had just tired me out, so I settled down, I got married, had a few puppies, and now I just relax." Well, the man was blown away. He's like, how much is this dog?" The owner said, $10. $10? Man, this dog's incredible. Why is he so cheap? The owner said, "Because he's a liar. He didn't do any of that stuff." So Sunday school would not be complete without a few issues. And this part of the podcast is to show that all Sunday schools have issues. This is what really happens behind the scenes, the warts and all. And so rather than this time just me thinking of things that happened, I try to gather info from all of our other teachers in our chat. And boy, we came up with quite a few. First of all, we had an object lesson that was going smooth until it didn't. And it was the one with the cup that's full of water, and you put an index card over the top and you tip it upside down, and it holds all the water in with that index card. I think the wrong type of paper, or rather cardboard in this case, and too large a paper was used, and it dumped all over everything. And yeah, but he did save it a little bit with what he said after, but that happened. And then we had the Egbert, the last object lesson, the final lesson, and we had three different classes doing it. But in our class, Sister Leia was having a free hand with the hammer, and she ended up later being completely splattered with egg. It was all over her, which is pretty funny. And then in the boys' class, Logan was doing the egg smashing. And by the way, if you don't know what that lesson is, you just have to go check it out. It's pretty cool. It's called Egbert, and it's in the new curriculum. But Logan decided he would have a crescendo at the end, where rather than smashing a single egg, he would smash a whole town of eggs. And so there was 5 or 10 eggs that he smashed all at once. And so the class was covered in egg, the kids were covered in egg, he was covered in egg, everything was covered in egg. Yeah, it's a fun lesson, but it can get a little gnarly. In our class, I accidentally skipped our entire theme skit because I looked around and couldn't see any of those people that were participating. So I assumed that they were out or not come back from their bus yet. So I just skipped it, went to the next thing, not realizing they were behind me, waiting for me just to get done so they could start. And so when I skipped them, they didn't know what to do. So that was an oops. And then we were doing the scary box game. It's a really fun game I don't have time to really go into. But I was looking for my prizes and could not find them anywhere. In fact, I was blaming everybody who took my snacks, and I was all upset. And then I realized when I got in my truck to go home that they were still in my truck because I never got them out. The toddler class, this is funny, they threw a full birthday party for one of their young students. And I mean, they had cupcakes and sang to her and everything, made a big deal, and then found out they were 2 months early. So they did a surprise birthday for a little girl and didn't mean to. And then one of the teachers in another class, I don't remember exactly all the context of this, but they started to sing the song instead of the Bible story, and then had to unwind everything. So that was kind of funny. Anyway, it was a Sunday full of oopsies, but it was a great one. So that's the bad part, but we do want to talk about some wins as well, because every Sunday there's good things that happen, and there's also bad things that happen. So we want to highlight both of those. And we were playing that fun, scary box game, and we had one of our boys. Anyway, he's reaching in a box. He can't see what's inside, but he's feeling it, and it's slimy. So he's flipping out. He pulls his hand out. He's, that's slimy, that's slimy. And he didn't want to touch it. And then he starts dry heaving, like, but then he mans up. And the whole lesson was about being courageous, being strong and courageous. And so he reaches back in there while he's dry heaving and keeps touching it and goes, it's slime, it's slimy. I was dying. We were all cracking up. Anyway, it turns out that it was shrimp, and he's feeling, he goes, shrimps. It was really, really funny, but he did the point of the lesson perfectly, which is being strong and courageous. And the altar call, the kids in our class are finally getting it. They're not scattering when class is over. They're coming down to the altar, and without us having to herd them, they're going to the right place. They're going out the correct door at the right time. It's almost like they're listening. I mean, imagine that. Isn't that crazy? There was a couple that took the wrong detour, and so they missed their snack, but they'll learn next week. And then I found out that the girls' class, sometimes when that's a tougher class for some reason to get an altar call. Most of the time, by the time you say bow your heads, are halfway out the door. But this time they stayed. They stayed around the altar, they lingered, they prayed, and they had a really good altar call, and that's exciting. That's a win. So thoughts from the notebook. And Tristan, you kind of walked into this, and I've already told you, but this is a notebook that I've had for many years, and there's hundreds of thoughts that are in there. And I was going through them, and not all of them are even worthy of, spending a whole lot of time on. Definitely not an article, definitely not a whole podcast, but you don't just want to throw them away.
Yeah. And
so I'm going to just put one of them in here. I am trying to flesh them out, so it's not just a one-liner every time, but it's just something that I've written that I was like, you know what, that was something that I would like to remind myself of, and in the process, help others as well. I've called it, "You're Not Supposed to Be Enough." It'll make a little more sense when I get into it. Now, Tristan hasn't heard this yet.
I have not heard this at all.
So God's purpose in our life is kind of a funny thing. It's not something we can actually handle, believe it or not. I mean, you would think that if God gives you something to do, you have the capability to actually do it. Mm-hmm. But actually, it's the opposite. He usually gives you something that you can't quite handle, because that's the whole point. Because God asks us to do impossible things, because now we have to rely on Him.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was a cool thought. Like fishermen, he asked them to be apostles and change the world. They did not have the capability to do that. These were unlearned fishermen. All they knew how to do was fish. And God's saying, I want you to become preachers. Well, they certainly didn't know how to do that. And on their own, they couldn't have. How about Moses, the stuttering... what did he say? I don't even know how to speak, right? He didn't even know how to speak. And he says, I want you to go talk to Pharaoh, the most important man in the entire world right now, and I want you to convince him to let my people go. Someone that can't talk.
Yeah.
That's not fair. But it's not fair. It is actually fair because God gives you the capability to do things you can't do on your own. Or a girl asked to carry the Savior of the world. He asked us, Tristan, you and me, to minister to kids and somehow teach them. Some of these kids we pick up are so rough and we think we can't do much with them.
Yeah.
We can't on our own.
Very
but
true.
we can love them and we can do our part and try to help change them. And with God's help, we can. And He's shown us time and time again that He can, but not with just what we can do, not with our own ability, but with His.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a cool design by God, that this call on your life is actually bigger than our ability to do it.
Yeah.
I actually think that's a really cool concept.
That's really good.
Yeah, because if the calling was small enough and in our ability,
We'd never rely on Him.
We wouldn't need Him,
Yeah.
right? We could do it all ourselves. If our own talent and energy and effort could pull it off every time, why would we even need to lean on Him?
Yeah, and it wouldn't be something great at that point. It would be the normal.
Yep. It's like, what's the need of prayer? Why would you need to even pray? Why would you need to fast if you can do it all on your own? It's like, I don't need that.
Yeah.
You do need it, and we have to have Him. And so we don't have the resources, we don't have the right talent, we don't have enough energy, time, money, volunteers, confidence to do it all by ourselves, and that's cool because God does, and He has it all. And this is a cool line that I read. Miracles don't start until your ability ends. That's such a cool concept.
Well, yeah,
you can't have a miracle.
How would it be a miracle if you were able to do it on your own?
Right. If you're strong enough and brave enough, smart enough, and cool enough to pull it off on your own,
you could do everything on your own.
You'd never need a miracle.
There'd never be anything amazing or like out of this world or whatever. It'd be the normal.
Yeah. So when someone asks you to do a massive job, like when they asked us to do the curriculum, I was excited to do it. But it's just too big. That's a multi-year project. There's no way we can do it. And we're right, we can't unless God steps in. And like your uncle, my brother, our pastor, says, when the wind of God is in your sails, the breath of God is blowing your boat, you can get a whole lot more done than you can on your own.
Very much so.
Yeah. So when you hit a wall, when you've tried all you can, you've ran out of your strength, that's when God steps in and does what only He can do. And so this is some kind of a takeaway, is don't hold back, don't ration your energy, don't try to wait for the perfect moment, don't save your best, especially, goodness gracious, for when someone's watching. Don't even try to hide your lack of ability to do it. Don't try to have bluster and say I can pull this off on my own. We all know we can.
Yeah.
So who are you trying to fool? So go ahead, say yes to the thing that scares you. Show up even when you feel empty. Lead even when you feel weak. Teach even when you feel unqualified, because you don't have to be enough.
Yeah.
Because God already is.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool concept.
Yeah. I think the cool thing about that is it's not only is it like good for us to do that, but it's good for the kids to see that we're doing things that we may not feel able to, because they may be feeling, well, I'm a kid, how am I expected to do things?
That's exactly right. Yeah, we tell them all the time, you can be more than you think you can, but yet sometimes we don't believe it for ourselves, and we sure don't act like it. But anyway, that's just a little thought from the notebook.
Sounds really good.
So something I learned from Fishin. Now, Tristan, again, I'm just going to explain this both to you and to the audience if they come in and they haven't listened to the first one. But me and Brother Lee, we went on a fishing trip, and while we were on that boat on the way back, we sat down and made a list of all the things we learned from that fishing trip. And it was just kind of a weird thing to do. Like, why would we decide that trip was a lesson learning moment? And really, it wasn't any more than anything else, but it really was cool, because we sat down, and once we started forcing ourselves to think, what did we learn about children's ministry and the kingdom of God from this fishing trip? It's unbelievable all the lessons we came up with.
Yeah, I remember you telling us some of the stuff.
Yeah. And so I'm encouraging everybody that if you are doing anything, if you're going on vacation, before you leave, say, I'm going to try to figure out what I can learn about, or what lessons I can get about children's ministry or the kingdom of God from this silly trip I'm going to go on to Disneyland. And it sounds funny, and it doesn't sound like it's something that's possible, but it is so doable.
Definitely
and so possible when you think about it, when you force yourself to do it.
Very true.
And so we came up with, I don't even remember, 30 lessons or something crazy.
That's crazy.
So this is number 3. I think this is the 3rd one from the lesson. They're in no particular order. But this one I've called Fancy Gear, but Empty Nets. And so we're on this charter boat, and this particular one, we're chasing rockfish, and we're getting ready to drop our lines over the side. And if you've ever been on like a rock fishing trip, it's usually pretty deep. It's anywhere from 100 to 300 feet, and you're using pretty heavy lead. And so it's a lot of work. Mm-hmm. And a lot of physical work especially when you're reeling up a couple fish, all the way up. Anyway, the reason I bring that up is some people try to get out of that work, and this is how. So we're getting ready to drop our lines. I looked around, and most of us, for the most part, have pretty basic setups. Various levels of, I guess, of quality. But we all had rods and reels, and a strip of squid or an anchovy or something for our bait. But others went all out. I'm telling you, there was a guy that he looked like he had his gear from NASA. Like it was
That's
bonkers.
Crazy.
He had an electric reel with a battery pack strapped on his hip, a cable running, because it's so much work to wind it up by yourself.
I can see how that
So
would
he hits
be
a
very
button,
difficult.
and it would reel up fish from 300 feet down, and he could just like eat a sandwich while it's happening.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, he has all this equipment. I think he said the reel alone was over $1,000. The pole was God only knows how much.
Wow.
My whole setup was given to me for free, but it was decent, but it wasn't anything close to that.
Wow, I've never heard of high maintenance fishing.
Yeah, very high maintenance. And I'm not hating on this guy. I was half impressed and half like, what a loon, right?
Yeah.
But here's the funny part. By the end of the trip, the same guy that had all that fancy equipment had it all packed away, and he was fishing with a regular rod because he caught nothing on his $1,000 reel.
Really?
He wasn't catching anything. So all the fancy equipment didn't matter because really he didn't know how to fish.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if you have the fancy stuff. If you don't know how to fish, you're not going to catch anything. Gear for days, but no fish. And so we were thinking, me and Brother Lee on the way back, that children's ministry especially is the same. You can have 50 kind of hooks. We'll translate that to, the fancy fishing gear. You could have the highest end curriculum.
Yeah.
Accent action. Yeah, I hope that qualifies. The slickest promo videos. You could have the coolest background. You could have a custom shirt for every event, even an LED background, like an LED wall, which would be awesome.
That would be so cool.
That is my dream one day, to have that behind our stage. And then you could set the scene of whatever you're doing instantly. You just one click of a button.
That'd be really cool.
But even if you have that, but your basics aren't right, you're not going to see results. You're not going to have kids excited to come. You're definitely not going to see them getting filled with the Holy Ghost. They're not going to be getting baptized. You're not going to be seeing the true fruit of children's ministry, even if you have all the fancy equipment, if your basics are wrong. So stop polishing up. As Brother Wilson says, I heard him say this several times, stop polishing the machine, and use the machine. Quit making the machine look pretty. Now it's time to actually put it to use.
Yeah.
And so Jesus didn't just say, hey, go ye into all the world and build a brand.
No.
He didn't say that. He said, follow me, and I'm going to make you fishers of men, going into all the world and teach all nations.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. You got to get your line in the water, and that means sticking to the fundamentals. And we're going to just talk about a couple of those fishing / children's ministry fundamentals, because there are some remarkable parallels here.
Okay.
So number one, here's one that I thought was funny. Drop to the bottom. I'll let you guess, Tristan. Where do you think rockfish are at?
I mean, just based on the name of it, it's not like they'd be in the rocks.
There you go. That wasn't a trick question.
Okay.
Rockfish are on rocks. They are around rocks. They won't be around sand. They won't be at the surface. They won't even be in between the surface and the rocks. They're at the rocks. So if you're fishing for rockfish, you're never going to find them anywhere but the rocks.
Okay.
And so you got to get the line down to where they're at. You got to get the bait to where the fish are at. Mm-hmm. The parallel is meet the kids where they're at.
Yeah.
Right? You can have this high level, super spiritual, man, I'm going to talk about the book of Revelation today. It's going to be awesome. And the fish are in another planet, right? They're out there playing around the rocks. Yeah. And in their mind, they have no clue what you're saying. They don't even see the bait because you have it 300 feet above their heads. They don't even know what you're talking about.
Some of these kids may not even know, David and Goliath.
A lot of these kids, some of them literally have never owned or seen or opened or read a Bible.
Yeah. So
and we're
going
talking
to the
about some
hardest-
esoteric concept that they've never
I don't even
heard
understand all of it.
Yeah. And so meet kids where they're at. That means emotionally and spiritually. Don't talk over their heads. Don't use, and this is, I'm using this terminology on purpose, abstract churchy language.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we say things that make sense to us, but they have no clue what we're talking about.
Yeah.
And so we got to make sure we meet them where they're at. If they're dealing with fear, we need to deal with that fear. Talk about peace. If they're insecure, teach them about Jesus, how God can help with their insecurity. Go to where they're at.
Yeah.
Find them and don't shoot over their heads. That's number one. Here's another one. Use the right bait or the right lures for the fish you're going after.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going after adults, I'm not going to offer them a coloring book. If I'm talking to kids, I'm sure not going to tell them that, hey, I got a Bible study on the book of Revelation.
Yeah.
The bait doesn't match the fish. You have to match them.
I think that's become more and more obvious, like when we split the classes, going from teaching, because I started out in the super class, so it was the 5 to 9-year-olds, and now I'm like pretty much permanently in the 10 to 11-year-olds, and just that difference of figuring out how to regulate from going between a 5-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old to a 10, 11-year-old is like having to realize that they're like where you're really trying to go from there.
That's a good point. So I was talking about adults versus kids, but even within kids, there's differences. So if you try to teach the same way to toddlers as you do youth, your bait is not going to be attractive. They are just, there's some stuff, I might nibble on that a little bit, but for the most part, they're going to be like, this is not what I'm here for.
Yeah, for sure.
And so the toddler class is different from the super class. The super class is different from the girls 10 to 11 and the boys 10 to 11 class. It doesn't mean we're even using the same curriculum across those, but you can adapt it and use different language and use different methods of connecting.
Yeah. I think it's really just learning your class.
Learn the class, yep.
Just like filling the room out. Even on different Sundays, you'll have to use different ways to teach.
There you go. So match the bait to the fish you're chasing. I thought that was good.
That was really good.
Yeah. So if I'm going after rockfish and I'm using a topwater lure, which is something that floats on the top,
I don't think you're going to catch much.
You're not going to catch diddly squat. Here's another one. I thought this was good. Stay vertical and tangle free. So when you're on a boat, on a charter boat, you got people all around the boat, and so they tell you to keep your lines up and down, keep your lines vertical, because you're drifting, right? And so as you do, your lines tend to swing out to the back of the boat or whatever way you're drifting.
Yeah.
And so they tell you to keep your line up and down, which means you got to keep dropping it, picking it up and dropping it. Otherwise, you have tangles.
Yeah.
So someone beside you, you're tangling them, and then that person's tangling the next, and then you end up with a disaster on the boat where everybody's tangled. So how does that apply? Well, how about stay in your own lane?
Yeah.
Cover the part that you're supposed to be covering, and let other people take care of their job. Don't compete with them. Don't try to copy someone's calling. I'm not going to try to be Tristan. Tristan doesn't try to be me. We're ourselves.
Yeah.
Just be faithful to what God has called us to do. Focus on what you're called, and you won't get tangled up and messed up with other people.
I think it's really good.
How about this one? Check your line and rebait often. Now, all of these could be their own little lesson on their own, huh?
Yeah.
So you could be sitting there for 20 minutes. You could think you're fishing. You could think that your line's in the water. You could think that you're after the kids, but really the fish stole your bait a long time ago, and you're fishing with a bare hook. In fact, that happens all the time. You cast and the bait flies off when you cast, and there's people just out there fishing for hours with no bait on their hook. So how does that apply? Check your lesson all the time. Refresh your approach. Don't run stale week after week.
Yeah.
The kids can tell. Stay prayed up. All right, here's another one. Watch for the bite and set the hook.
Yeah.
Because rockfish, especially because your line is so long and the monofilament is stretchy, you don't feel it real hard, but so you got to be real sensitive. And it's just a little bump, and if you're not watching, you're going to miss it. And so you got to set the hook. And that's the same with any type of fishing, like with bass fishing or whatever. If you feel a little bump, just set the hook. It might be that you're just dragging on the bottom, but it also might be that a fish just swam off with your bait. And so you gotta be ready or you're going to miss it. How does that apply, Tristan? That is, well, kids aren't always obvious when they're ready to pray.
Yeah.
Some kids don't cry during the altar call. Some kids you can just tell there's something different. Maybe they're sitting a little quieter. Maybe they're paying a little more attention than they normally are. And that's when we need to pay attention. And that may be our moment to pray with them, to talk to them, to say, hey, can I pray with you? Why don't you come up to the front and pray? And we need to set that hook before the moment passes, before their friends disturb them, before they get distracted. Yeah. And we can get them and save them because we're watching and we're feeling for that little bump.
And I think that's not only just with praying, but like sometimes when kids have stuff going on, a lot of them aren't just going to come up and tell you. But we've had moments in the girls' class where a girl will come and ask us, hey, like, do you need help cleaning up? And so we'll help clean up, but then they just kind of like stand around, and then we'll be like, hey, are you okay? And then they'll come over and they'll like give us a hug, and then they're crying, and we're like, what's wrong? And they're like, I don't know, I just don't feel good today. And then there's just little stuff where it's not only them wanting to pray, but they just don't know
if
really
you emotional,
or they just don't know if you even want to hear it.
Well, a lot of times the kids don't understand what they're feeling, and so they feel the presence of God maybe for the first time ever, and all they know is, why am I crying? Why am I so emotional? Why am I weepy? And they just want to hug somebody. They just want to hold somebody. They honestly just want to bury their head and enjoy it. They're not running from it, but they also don't know what to do with it.
There's one little boy every single Sunday.
Yeah, he's sweet as
he comes crying, and he's always like, I don't know what's wrong.
Well, we talked to him, by the way, so he does know.
He does know, but he says like every time it happens, it just feels like he just doesn't know what to do with it.
Yeah. So we got to be sensitive to those little bites, be ready to set the hook. Last one, and we already kind of talked about this, is fish over structure. That's for rockfish, that's over the rocks. But they have areas that they congregate to. Fish all have a place that they congregate. Like if you're bass fishing, they're going to be around structure. They're going to be around that stump, that branch, those reeds. You know, they have places that they congregate. So fish over where they live. So some of your most profitable times that you're talking to these kids is going to be in some messy places. You have some tough kids, you have some hard conversations, some awkward moments, but that's where breakthroughs happen. And so don't avoid that situation. Target it. Go after it and say, you know, we're gonna get these kids. In fact, we go to some of the worst parts of our city that people say, don't ever go there. You know, it's not safe. And so we're like, whoa, we're not avoiding it. We're targeting it. Yeah. That's the place that needs God the most. And so we're targeting the place that everybody else wants to avoid. So if your net feels empty, if your spiritual catch isn't maybe what you're used to seeing, we're recommending don't go shopping for a new LED wall. don't go buy better microphones because kids aren't getting the Holy Ghost. Don't redecorate necessarily as an attempt to see more kids in the altar. Go back to the basics. Get a lesson together, pray over it, show up early, greet every kid by name, have energy, pray for the kids, talk to them about Jesus, and then this is key, adjust as you go. But be sensitive and follow it. And another thing to remember, and this is really important, is maybe they're not biting today. The best fishermen get skunked sometimes. You go out there and it's just, you know, it's a weird day on the water. The fish aren't biting. They're not interested. They're distracted. They're punching the kid next to them. Yes. They had a bad day. They had a bad night at home. Whatever happened. But they're just not ready to listen. And so sometimes we just have to be okay with that. Doesn't mean we give up. Doesn't mean we like slack off and don't have altar call. No, of course not. We still do the best we can, but sometimes the fish just aren't biting. The water's weird. Yes, right? Very true. And that's okay, but we'll learn by doing. But I can tell you this, you're not going to catch anything if your line's not in the water. So bait up, cast out, trust the one who fills the nets. And that's our lesson from fishing today.
Yes, it's very good.
So I'm trying to find a new object lesson to give you all, and I have several, but I actually want to revisit one that we have used quite a bit, and it is the magic change purse. It's where you can pull multiple things, different things out of the same bag. It's a pretty common magic prop. But this one, I was actually listening. Oh, can you believe that? I was listening in church when they were preaching was happening. But I was thinking, because they were talking about how if we reach inside ourselves and we pull out what's there, if we're full of ourselves, we're just going to pull out junk. But if we're full of the Holy Ghost, when we reach inside ourselves, when what we pull out is now God and the Holy Ghost. So I was thinking, that's cool. I wonder if I can visually show that concept. And then I thought, haha, magic change bag. On one side of the bag, you can have junk in there, stuff that illustrates us. Maybe it's something that illustrates sin, or I don't know, a bunch of stuff you could put in there, maybe trash or paper or money or whatever. And then on the other side, you can put something that represents the good things, the things of God. I don't know what all that would entail. I haven't really thought this whole thing out, but I was just thinking that prop could do that. So whatever you're full of is what you're going to pull out when it comes time to give something, or maybe you're talking to somebody. If you're full of yourself, that's what's going to come out. That's what you're going to give them. If you're full of the Holy Ghost, that's what you're going to give them. Use a magic change bag that can be found on Amazon, pretty much anywhere, but get the bigger size, the jumbo size. The smaller ones are not that great. From the archives. So I went into the dusty, dingy archives of Apostolic Sunday School, and I pulled out a lesson that I really haven't used that often. I think it's referenced once in the curriculum. I can't really remember, but I was going through and I thought, you know what, this is one that I haven't talked about in a while, so let's do it. It's about pressure, not tire pressure, but the peer pressure, that daily trying to fit in, blend in, go along with the crowd. And you can talk about it using a bed of nails. And that's a real one. It's one that you make yourself. I guess you can buy them, but just make it yourself. It's easier. You have 2 boards, 100 nails, and a balloon. So the science to it is very simple. With 1 nail, the balloon pops, but with 100 nails spread out evenly, that same balloon can handle a whole lot more. The pressure's still there, but it is distributed. And you can set that up in your class. You can show that the nails are sharp. You can actually pop a balloon with a single nail, or just, use it on the corner of your board that you make. And that balloon is us. And then you put it very gently on top of the nails, and you start squeezing those 2 boards together, and you can actually make this assembly. It's on Apostolic Sunday School. You can find it. Look up peer pressure. And the world wants us to dress like them and talk like them and watch what they watch. And every time you're saying something, you squeeze it, and you're kind of painting this picture. But the truth is that Jesus promised that he would never put more on us than we can bear. So it may feel like you're being crushed, but you're never alone. He holds us steady, even under pressure. And then finally, just to show that, eventually it's going to pop, you just keep squeezing until finally the balloon is just so distorted that it's hardly recognizable. It'll finally pop, and it makes it a very fun lesson talking about peer pressure using the bed of nails. All right, so now the new resource for today will be new to some of you and not to others. And some of you already have something that you use, and we're not suggesting at all that you replace it. We're just offering a resource that we like that might be good for you. And this is a tool that's pretty simple, it's powerful, and it's fun to use. And it's called Sound Plant. This is a piece of software that lets you turn just a regular old laptop computer into basically a fully customizable soundboard. And you can assign sound effects, background music, or even songs to individual keys that mimic the keys on your keyboard. So like when you hit H on your keyboard, it can play whatever song or sound effect you have assigned to it. And it triggers them instantly. There's no delay. The second you touch it, it already has them preloaded, so they're ready to go. And this is what I love about it, is it's just easy. It's just easy. Anybody with 30 seconds of training can figure it out and use it. And there are absolutely more advanced and more feature-heavy, rich programs out there. Yeah. QLab is fabulous on a Mac. Ableton Live is phenomenal. But they take some time to figure out. And they can do anything. They're unbelievable, but they're also, they're complicated. Yeah. SoundPlant is not complicated. You can literally learn 90% of it in 10 minutes. Is that safe to say?
SoundPlant is where that's the only really sound I've ever really done for Easter play, the Esther skit, that kind of thing. And I honestly really enjoy it. It's really fun because you get to mess around with different things.
And I'm not picking on you, Tristan, but you're not really into tech.
Oh no, absolutely not.
You're not into even sound. She's not a sound
really
person.
Honestly, as long as you know how to find a file in your file explorer and you know how to push a button on the keyboard. Also, the really cool thing for that is there's so many different, like where you can take a YouTube video and change it to an MP3 file.
And drag it in.
And all you have to literally look up is YouTube to MP3, and then you drag and drop it into one of the keys, and then all you have to do from there is push the key. And also it's really cool if you have somebody who knows how to run it, and then maybe they're really involved that Sunday, they can grab anyone and just say, push F when I need it.
When I need it, yep. So like she said, you can just drag and drop it in, or you can click the key and find the file. And then you're ready to go. So this is kind of some of the stuff you can do is you can trim either side of the file. So some of the music that we, like say you get it off YouTube, it might have an intro from not the manufacturer, the creator.
Yeah.
And you obviously don't want that to play, or something at the end. And so you can actually drag in the ends of the file and only play the part that you want to play.
Yeah.
You can adjust the volume separately for each file, which is cool. You know, you don't have to just say, oh, well, you know, that one's louder than the other. You can independently adjust the sound for each one. You can layer them or overlap them, which is really cool. So you have like a background track playing, and you can play sound effects on top of that. You can even play the same sound effect over and over again.
Yes.
So like if you have, like when we did our cowboy play, a gunshot, you can tap it once for a gunshot, and it doesn't have to wait for the sound file to finish before it can play again. You can just go bam, 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 bam. As fast as you tap the key, it's going to repeat the sound. You can loop it for altar calls. You can do all kinds of stuff. And again, these other programs that we had talked about can do all of this plus a bunch more. But this is just dumb easy.
Yeah,
it's so easy.
Especially for the size of space we're in, and it's like with the like age that's in that class and stuff.
Well, more than that, sis, it's there's 4 or 5 people that might be doing this at any one time. I don't have the time to train somebody on a super complex hours of training software when I can take 5 minutes and show 10 people this. You know, it just makes sense to have a really simple one.
Yeah, I think that it's honestly just a super simple way to do sound, especially if like you don't have a consistent person doing sound. Maybe you have a different person, like, hey, you're not on the schedule, so you can run sound, and all you really have to do is just push a button and find files. It
is a computer software. It runs on Mac or Windows. It does not run on iOS or Android. It's a computer software. So you can still hook up a Bluetooth speaker to that. We have ours into the sound system. You can do MP3s, waves, M4A, even MP4. You can even drag in video files if you have the paid version, and it'll just play the audio from it. You can adjust the volume, the pitch, and even pan it while it's playing, which is cool. So like say you are going into an altar call, you can start the soundtrack playing at a low volume and then increase it, ramp it up as needed, so you don't have to just have it preset. You can adjust it on the fly.
Yeah, I think honestly it really is cool, especially like for me, if I've accidentally, like if you, how are you saying, like you can play sounds over each other, like I've accidentally put it, you can push escape and like it'll close everything, but also you can like close individual sounds if you just accidentally hit it. So it's not like you push one button and then, oh no, what do I do?
Yeah, so it actually has like a list of everything that's currently playing, and so you can kill them independently, or you can hit escape to kill everything at once. Or you can even, so say I have a sound file that I want to fade in and fade out. You can have it like, say I assign the letter B to play a background track. So I tap that, and it's already preset to fade in for 10 seconds up to a certain volume. But then you don't know when you're going to need to kill it. It's just kind of dependent on what's happening on stage. You can fade it out on command. So like you can do shift in the same one. So like shift B, and now it fades out rather than just doing a hard cut. I don't have to just kill it.
That
is cool stuff.
I think that's cool. And then like there's just so many different things, and you can use it in so many ways. You can like, it's just a lot. There's a lot of like, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know.
I don't know what you're saying.
There's a lot of flexibility with it. You can do a lot of stuff with it. It's not set in one thing where you have to do this with it. I think it's an easy program to use, and it's just like, it's not like, it doesn't take a lot of time, effort, but it adds so much.
Well, here's the question though. Everybody's wondering is how much does it cost?
Yes.
Well, first of all, there's a free version that you can use forever for free, but there is what they call a nag screen. So after a while, it'll start annoying you when you start up saying, "Hey, you really ought to give us money because we're good people." But there's one other big constraint is if you just use WAV files, you can use it forever for free. But if you're using anything like an MP3 or something like that, I think you can actually use MP3s even on the free, but I think. But you can't do video files, and there's other stuff that you are restricted on the free. But it's $60 for the paid version. That is not per year. That's a license for that version. So if they come out with a new version, you don't get the free upgrade to that. But I think it's 5.0 right now that's out. And we paid $60, and we've had it for a couple years, and you can just keep using it indefinitely. So, and you can transfer it to other laptops. So the question is, why are we harping on this so much? Do we have a stake in this? No, of course not. It's just a resource that you can use, and if you don't want to use it, don't use it. If you have a better option, use it. If you have a more complex option that you love, use it. We don't care. In John chapter 2, we find the first recorded miracle of Jesus when he turned the water into wine at the wedding in Cana. And it's a really cool story. It's a moment we like to talk about. But there's a lesson in there for children's ministers and those working behind the scenes in all kinds of ministries that may not be seen all the time. Because it's not about the miracle itself, but it's about where the miracle happened. Because it wasn't on the platform, and it wasn't in front of the crowd. Now, I got this thought from Brother Mark Myers. He was here doing a minister's training session. No, not training session, but like a minister's meeting, just kind of giving thoughts to people in ministry. And so this is not an original thought with me, but I wanted to share this. But the miracle that happened there wasn't on a platform. It wasn't in front of a crowd, but the miracle actually happened between the kitchen and the table, because the feast had all been planned out, and that's like we plan our services and plan our Sunday school classes. And the team likely counted the guests and prepared for a specific number and expected things to go according to schedule. Yeah, right, like they ever do. But more people showed up, and they ran out. That's what happens. The resources run out. The pressure mounted, and like that, they were facing a problem behind the scenes that could have brought everything to a screeching halt. And boy, does that ever sound familiar. In children's ministry, in bus ministry, in the classroom, it's the same story. We plan, we prepare, we pour ourselves into it. We think we have every detail figured out, and then something happens, something breaks. Maybe it's a volunteer calling in sick or a bus acting up, maybe even catching on fire. A kid melts down. Chaos is in the kitchen when everything else looks like it's going fine at the table. But that's where Jesus steps in. And Mary said it best. She told the people that were running the wedding, whatever he tells you to do, do it. That's the key. The miracle didn't begin with shouting or singing. It began with servants, the quiet, obedient, behind-the-scenes worker. They were filling water pots by faith. They were listening to Mary doing what she told them to do. And when they obeyed, God did what only he could do. The people at the table, they enjoyed the wine. They had no idea, though, where it came from. And the governor of the feast, the person that was running it, was super impressed. He didn't know what happened either, but the servants knew. The ones behind the scenes, the one that were sweating, the one that was working, the ones that were scrambling, the ones that were listening to Mary, they were the ones that followed the orders even when it didn't make any sense at all. And because of that, they saw a miracle happen with their own eyes. And that's what children's ministry is like. Parents come in. They feel what's happening. They love it. Guests walk in. They feel the happiness and the stuff that's going on, but they have no idea who cleaned the floor, who made the name tags, who prepped the snack, who prayed over the lesson, who was up till midnight making that craft, who dealt with the 3 bathroom emergencies before 10 a.m. They don't see any of that. They don't see the kitchen. But that's where it all starts. That's where the miracle starts, because you don't get revival without stress. You don't get harvest without breaking a sweat, because when Jesus is in the house, he's always going to go above and beyond all our preparation. That's what's the really cool part, is however far we prep, he's going to go past it. He'll always stretch our limits, and that's where the miraculous starts. So we can't hold anything back. We can't save strength and reserve. We got to use it all. We got to pour it all out. Because the best wine didn't even appear until it was needed. And maybe nobody else is going to understand what even happened. But the ones that were in the kitchen, the ones that made it happen, they were the ones that knew. If there's going to be a miracle, it's going to be in the hands of the servants, of the ones that are working. The good things are going to show up at the table, but the story begins way earlier when the servants are working in the kitchen. And that's where we're at, and that's where God moves, and that's where I want to be. Well, that wraps it up for this episode of the Apostolic Children's Ministry Podcast. And thank you again for joining us. We know your time is super valuable. In fact, there's nowhere near enough of it during the week. And I apologize for taking even the little bit that I just did. But if something in this episode helped or challenged you or inspired you, that's awesome. Hopefully we were able to be a help of some kind. But we want to make it clear once again that this podcast is for us as much as anybody. We don't claim to be experts in this thing. We're just passionate about it, and we want to get better together. But keep reaching, keep teaching, keep believing that God is doing amazing things in children's ministry. God bless everybody.